Hello and welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. My guest today is the Washington, D.C. Vice News Deputy Bureau Chief Todd Zwillich, who is a brilliant political analyst who covered Congress for over 20 years. I think you'll love our conversation. He is now on the democracy beat over at Vice News, doing a great job. We had an awesome talk, and we had an awesome talk last night at the Hangout. Oh, man, it was filled with surprises. First, we kicked off with Eric Siegel, who joined us, had a lot of really nice things to say about the community and what the show is meant to him, and it was a really special moment to kick us off. And then we had surprise guests, our friends Megan and Cassie, stopped by my house and joined me in person for the Hangout. They're usually there with us virtually. And then the specialist guest of all, our superstar, Ava Dominic, my daughter, 18-year-old Ava, joined us to thank everybody who succeeded in contributing, donating, raising money for her because she was scammed out of her entire savings of $5,000. If you didn't hear about that, go listen to yesterday's show, and she was there to talk about that. Took a whole bunch of questions, so many amazing people telling her great things, and we will continue to be talking about what happened to Ava and doing the best we can to create awareness and make sure everybody knows their rights and can protect themselves and their family members and loved ones and friends from having this happen to you. Again, thank you to everybody who contributed to that GoFundMe that was started unbeknownst to me. Wasn't something I would have done, certainly. But thank you to Pete Coe, who started it. He was there last night. It really was a wonderful, wonderful hangout. 3.5 hours with a whole bunch of highlights. LaToya, listener and subscriber, was there. She lives down in Texas in that community where that horrific shooting occurred, and she shared with us a really heartbreaking but I think important story. And so thank you to her. And of course, John Carroll performed for us 3 songs. I'll tag one of his originals after my interview with Todd Zwillich. I'll close with it. It was so good. So you're missing out if you're not joining us at the Hangouts, is what I'm trying to tell you here. If you are a stand-up subscriber and you're not joining us, come on by Thursdays at 8. And if you're not, sign up now. StandUpWithPete.com. One of the many amazing parts of our community is that Hangout. Of course, the Discord platform, all kinds of connections being made there, ideas being shared there. So check us out, standupwithpete.com, patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Okay, it's Friday. I usually don't do a news segment or much of a preamble here on Friday, already long enough. Some of you like that. I just want to get to my guest. And so let's do it, shall we? Very excited about what's coming up next week. Please send me an email about who you want to hear. I always get a lot from listeners, so keep it coming. standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, and now Todd Zwillich, who I told you just a little bit about. He's the Deputy D.C. Bureau Chief at Vice News, former host of 1A on NPR. He's the host of Vice's Breaking the Vote, which is an amazing newsletter, vice.com/Breaking the Vote. Really great series or initiative at Vice News, a series tracking the growing assault on voting rights and efforts to undermine the democratic process in America is how it's described. Go subscribe to that right now. He's on Twitter at Todd Zwillich. He spent 8 years at WNYC at The Takeaway and he was a regular on the old show. He even used to sit in for me, fill in for me as a guest host. I think he's one of the smartest guys. I can't believe I haven't had him on the podcast yet, but let's do it right now for the first time with Todd Zwillich. Look at that face. So handsome. Yet we met doing radio, and I always wondered, why isn't he on the stage? Todd Zwillich on the podcast. I have no idea why it's the first time. I don't want to talk about it because it's embarrassing. I'm flattered that you would even agree to join me. Thank you, sir. Great to see you.
Hey, it's great to see you again, Pete. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. I'm all right. I just told you everything that's going on, and I'll be telling people publicly. So, what I just ran into. Other than that, I think I'm okay. But I think okay is the new amazing.
Yeah, no, you mentioned that, and I think that's about right. Like, normally when you say, how you doing? And people say good, there's always a but. Great, I'm doing good. And then here's how I'm really doing. 3 people in my family still have COVID.
Yeah.
My company is staggering a little bit, whatever.
Yeah. My car has been in the shop and they can't find the part for it. Doesn't exist. Brand new car. Okay. That's fun. Talking to you for years when you were, I guess, first at WNYC, NPR, but you're now at Vice and you're the deputy bureau chief in DC. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right.
and you're running this amazing newsletter, which I'm so embarrassed I wasn't already subscribed to. I am now. Breaking the Vote, a weekly newsletter by Todd Zwillich, tracks the latest attacks in the war on voting rights. This is really important work. I'm glad Vice is resourcing this. Nothing could be more important because all the rest of the issues that we talk about depend on this one, is how I'll say it. How would you say in a broad way the importance of this work? Because you've done all of it as a congressional reporter.
Yeah, and I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't sign you up for you earlier. I should have just signed you up. It was easy to do.
Your fault.
Yeah, now we got you. I think that this is the political story this is the biggest political story since 9/11 in the United States.
For sure.
I don't think there's any question about that. There are, of course, other huge stories. People want to fight me on this, the war in Ukraine. I'm not saying it's more important than people dying. I'm saying on the domestic scene, the attack on democracy, the rise of authoritarianism, and Donald Trump's attempted coup and attempted return to power is the biggest political story since 9/11. And that may make it the biggest, like in the family of biggest political stories, put Watergate in there, 9/11, I don't know, World War II. I mean, it's that important to me. And I think to readers, it's that big. We are experiencing, I think you would agree with me, the clear rise of an authoritarian movement, a Republican Party that is fundamentally different strategies and fundamentally different imperatives at the wheel than even, if you and I would have talked a few years ago when we were both doing radio and we would come on and talk about Congress and Paul Ryan and what's Mitch McConnell going to do next? And will Obama go for it? There was a lot of ugly going on there. We're not Pollyannish about it. But this politics now is fundamentally different. The incentives are different. The people driving what's not even a debate sometime are completely different. And the base and its demands are different. And it's headed to a potentially very, very dangerous place that really does. I can say it without hyperbole. We cover it every week, all the time. Yep. We've been out all over America on television and in the newsletter. Really does threaten the fabric of the democracy in this country. So that wasn't super succinct, but I think it's that big a deal.
No, you didn't need to be. There's a lot to say about it. But I think just to take a step back, I feel like some of the problem here is the ignorance and apathy of Americans. And the reason for that is the same reason why, you might get hoodwinked or scammed, because you don't know better. Americans don't know what it's like to be without a democracy, at least the one we grew up with, which is easy to criticize, but still, we don't know what it's like. And I feel like a lot of authoritarian experts and historians who cover authoritarianism have been getting righteous attention. Kenneth C. Davis, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, obviously Tim Snyder at Yale, because they're educating us on the history of authoritarianism. And, I just rewatched Band of Brothers, and it's crazy to think we were fighting, the Nazis in World War II in the 40s. But this generation, two generations, don't know what it's like to not have this. I feel like just the biggest issue is that people don't understand democracy because they've always had democracy, so to speak. What do you think about that?
I think that's right on. I think that experts who you mentioned, who I've talked to many times, especially Ruth, Ken C. Davis, who was a favorite guest of mine back in the WNYC days and on NPR, and a kind man, by the way.
Yeah.
And lots of other experts too. Look, I think that education is going on. I agree with everything that you said, and it's exacerbated by online information and disinformation. Not only how easy it is to simply post disinformation online, but still a business model and an algorithm model that privileges this type of information and outrage politics that goes along with it. Watch Tucker Carlson's show, or what used to be his show, or what's returning to Twitter. It is a mixture of straight up disinformation, but also factual and quasi-factual information that is just boosted for outrage constantly. Television with an online component. And outrage is nothing new to politics. Grievance is nothing new to politics. But now you have a delivery system that primes the brain and privileges that information over factual information or sober information. And it's potentially catastrophic.
It privileges
the easiest example, just to hammer it home, the easiest example is January 6th. Be there, will be wild. Okay. Look at the transcripts of the Proud Boys trial for seditious conspiracy. 4 Proud Boys were just convicted. They're going away for a long time. I don't know how long yet. A 5th was convicted on several charges, but acquitted of the seditious conspiracy. And I'm not saying those guys are dupes. They have agency. They acted because they wanted to. But the facts of that case are very much a latching on to, in this case, Donald Trump's disinformation campaign about a stolen election, filtered through the internet, and then motivated to action by the December 16th tweet, "Be there, will be wild." And they took that as a rallying cry from social media. We have to be there, and they were there, and they were wild.
Well, well, to stick to that, you've been covering a lot of these cases. You've been covering so much of the post-January 6th stuff over there at Vice News, doing a great job. And the criticism from a lot of the public activists and a lot of legal analysts who I like and respect is that, they're doing a good job arresting the foot soldiers, the pawns, those who showed up on January 6th, but the architects, the planners, Trump, Mark Meadows, and others, they are not being held responsible, at least not yet. And then the other side, or another side of that, is give Merrick Garland time, give the Attorney General time. And you've been covering it. What do you think about kind of all of those opinions in terms of the role of the Department of Justice or the role of any other jurisdiction, including something like what's going on in Atlanta with that case? Because anything that pertains to January 6th is what I'm referring to.
Yeah. Criticism's totally valid because people want and need accountability. I'm not convicting anybody in this conversation, but accountability is important. And we have a huge amount of evidence through press reports and just Republicans speaking about other Republicans, especially the full report of the January 6th committee in Congress, that there was an organized attempt to steal the election. Now, whether that meets legal bars, I guess we'll find out. So a couple things I'll say about that. I think it's pretty clear that the January 6th committee did serve to push the Department of Justice along. It's hard to remember back then because it was, 8 months and 4,020 news cycles ago. But there was sort of a telegraphed reluctance from Garland, sober, slow moving, slow wheels of justice, moderate Merrick Garland, who wasn't even really mad about having a Supreme Court seat stolen from him, kind of thing, about whether he would have the guts and the grit to meet this sort of authoritarian moment. I don't know what was going on in his head, but there were a lot of people who do know him who worried aloud. And I think the January 6th committee definitely pushed that along. And so flash forward to now, the answer is stay tuned, right? We're very aware that there is, first of all, Garland's taken himself out of it for now. We've got special counsel Jack Smith, which I know you know, and they are actively investigating not just January 6th. I view these as two separate and related things. January 6th, who did what for the insurrection, getting the crowd there, whipping up the crowd, starting the riot. They've arrested and charged over 1,000 people. There may be a component of that as well in the leader circle, for instance, tweeting, "Will be wild," get the crowd there, whip them up, refusing to call them off for 3 hours for the 187 minutes of the insurrection. I know you know that story.
Yeah.
Separate from that, that's the insurrection, the coup attempt, which is really what it was. Organizing of fake electors, transmitting, fomenting the false story all throughout the body politic and into Republican circles in the states, in Arizona, in Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, trying to get these Republican legislatures to issue false electors. And then, for instance, in Georgia, where there's a state really investigation going on, you mentioned Fulton County, actively trying to overturn results in a state. They have a couple phone calls. You've heard them. January 2nd phone call. You can listen to the tapes. Find me 7,000. What is it again? 11,714. Do you remember the number?
I don't, but I remember the specificity of it because not unlike the E. Jean Carroll thing and other things we see, like he so often incriminates himself with that kind of specificity, with a bizarre kind of thing to say out loud. But go ahead. Yeah.
Well, he says it in the call. I think I think it's 11,714. Somebody's going to fact check me. I'm embarrassed. I don't know it exactly.
I'll look it up. Go ahead. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But then he's 11,700, whatever, one more than we need. He knows the number, and he's telling the Secretary of State, find me one more vote than I need. And elsewhere in the conversation, people get prosecuted for stuff like this. You'll be a hero. It could go better, very badly for you if you don't do this. And that's a conversation, by the way, with the President of the United States. So, I don't know if Trump's going to get charged there. It really, 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 really looks like he's going to. All the signs are pointing to it. Fani Willis, the DA, has said July 11th starts the clock. We will announce indictments between July 11th and September 1st because they have major security concerns. Everybody get ready kind of thing. So, yeah, accountability. It's like, yes, it's been frustratingly slow moving, but stay tuned. The Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys verdicts, I think 14 extremists have been convicted or pled guilty to seditious conspiracy now. That's between Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes and that group that was convicted a few months ago, and the Proud Boys that were convicted just late last week.
Right.
Enrique Tarrio and his gang. They're all going away for a long time. And most of the experts you talk to about this, and I want to stress this is somewhat speculative, really want to know now they're a level above just the rank rioters, MAGA people, tourists who got caught in the moment, started to riot, punched a cop, or stole Nancy Pelosi's pen. A level above that because of the planning, the prospective planning, the discussions about sparking it off, and the fact that known close associates of Donald Trump are known close associates of these guys. Again, that doesn't make Donald Trump guilty of a conspiracy here. I want to make it clear, but people know how close Roger Stone is and was to Donald Trump. Roger Stone was in Washington, D.C. on January 5th and 6th. Roger Stone was guarded by a coterie of extremists when he was there. He's taken the Oath Keepers pledge. So that makes people look for the nexus. And I assure you that federal investigators are looking for the nexus. I don't know what they'll find.
Yeah, we don't know what they'll find, but they're going to find 11,780 votes, Todd. I can't believe you're such a terrible journalist that you couldn't remember.
I was close without going over. I met the Bob Barker.
I wish I had. Do I have a sound effect? There it is. Okay, so I want to ask you about Mike Pence. You've been covering him a lot.
Yeah.
Strange that he might be running for president again. It looks likely, as a matter of fact. It seems almost, and my analysis, as you know me a long time, always right, never wrong, is
always
that he's waiting to find out what happens with some of these legal cases. And by the way, it would seem that these legal cases, and now two where he's been found guilty in these civil trials, are helping him, not hurting him. But you can tell me your interpretation on that. What's Mike Pence's role in doing more? We don't know what he said to Jack Smith. He could have testified for the January 6th committee. He refused to. But you've written about him. What could he be doing? What should he be doing? And is he running for president or waiting for Donald Trump to just be found guilty a few more times?
Yeah, and he testified in front of Jack Smith. Literally, Jack Smith showed up for his grand jury appearance. 6 or 7 hours of testimony. We should be clear. Mike Pence tried to get out of that. He tried to get out of it on several levels. He's really sort of played this double game of trying to curry social and political credit for criticizing Donald Trump. He was wrong that day. I never had the power to overturn the election. Donald Trump was wrong, sort of separating himself from the cult of Trump if he can, but then writing about it in his book, in his memoir, writing about the facts of that day. But then when the subpoena comes saying, I don't want to go and tell the truth under oath, and I don't want to help with actual accountability. That's what Mike Pence did. Mike Pence criticized Trump when he finally came out at a press dinner a couple of months ago and criticized Trump for his actions on January 6th. He did it at this event where it was only like press elites. It was the Gridiron Dinner, which is the fanciest, pansiest, mainstream establishment media, old school, like crusty dinner that exists in Washington, like literally white tails, white bow ties. No cameras allowed. So he did it in this environment where he knew that the political Beltway press would report it on their terms, which is Pence separates himself from Trump. Pence criticizes Trump. News. No cameras, so that no clips will ever be played of it. No broadcast will ever be made of it. Just quotes that people pulled off in this closed environment. And then when the subpoena came, he did everything he could to avoid it. He made constitutional arguments, which are not entirely spurious, but really did everything he could to avoid going under oath and telling the truth.
Yeah.
That didn't work out because the subpoenas were quashed. Trump tried to keep him out of there with executive privilege claims. That got quashed as well. So Pence did testify. Grand juries are sealed. I don't know what he said. But he might be a very, very important witness to Trump's state of mind, his actions, and what was actually said in the White House, what was said to Pence to try to get him to help steal the election on January 6th, which ultimately he refused to do. I think Pence is an important witness. He's probably not the most important. Just from where I sit, the most important.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Mark Meadows?
Yeah, it's Meadows. Meadows is the switchboard for so much of this in almost every case. I think certainly I know Meadows has a lot of Fifth Amendment answers because a lot of his role would incriminate him, and he's not required under the Constitution to say anything that's going to get himself in trouble. But look back in the record of the January 6th committee and in press reports that Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony that Meadows is the switchboard between MAGA members of Congress and the Trump White House, the fake elector scheme, organization for January 6th, fundraising. Scott Perry, the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, a congressman from Pennsylvania, coup plotter, who is pretty well revealed to have helped organize the part of the coup plot that tried to leverage the power of the Justice Department to get Georgia legislators to falsely overturn their own election, and said, like, the Justice Department will just say that the election wasn't fair, and then you guys have a starting gun. That was Scott Perry who tried to organize that, help organize that. And Meadows is at the center of all of it. So I don't know. I don't know if he winds up getting charged. I don't know if he gets immunity. I have no idea. But I know that he's been, he tried to avoid testifying. Trump tried to keep him out with executive privilege claims. All of that failed. And we may never know in a grand jury how many times Meadows took the fifth, but I'm willing to bet that it's somewhere north of a lot.
When you mention a guy like Scott Perry, who's still in Congress, there's, I think, probably dozens more who are still Republican congressmen who could be considered accessories to a coup in all kinds of different ways. As a reporter yourself, with experience stalking the halls of the Capitol for years and years, at what point, what's the responsibility or relevance to keep asking the question of their role in January 6th? Like when I see some of these, I call them insurrectionists, tweeting criticisms of anything, about anything, I immediately only want to ask them about their role. I want answers on that. Of course, they would say, at this point, I imagine even most congressional reporters would just eye roll you for asking them. It's all I want to know. I don't want to hear any other questions about infrastructure or COVID or the Biden administration. I just want to know this, Jim Jordan, Scott Perry, and the rest. What do you think about, like, how do you handle that as a journalist when we still haven't gotten these people that are still serving, that are coup plotters, to answer these questions directly?
Yeah, and I think about this a lot because I spent 20 years of my career on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
And I think I understand what it means to be in front of these people every day. I think I understand what it means to be institutionalized. Capitol Hill, Congress is an institution. And when you work there, when it's your beat and you go there every day, like all primates, you get institutionalized. I was too. I get it. What that means in this case is, first of all, there's a psychological pressure, and it's very understandable. You're a journalist. You're not there to take sides. You're reporting on what goes on. Capitol Hill is divided into two sides, Republicans and Democrats, and they go like this. And you say, oh, I'm a ref. Some people use a horrible analogy, balls and strikes, or you're just there to sort of report on what's going on. So if the conversation, if one side manages to make the conversation about something else, like out of control spending or the Biden crime family or the border crisis, that changes your window, that changes your frame of reference. Even though you might know at night over dinner or on the weekend that there is nothing more important than an attempted coup, an attempted overthrowing of the presidency, which is what happened. And people who participated, the record is pretty clear in the January 6th committee, are still walking around Congress. Not only that, in the aftermath, the leadership of the House Republicans, Kevin McCarthy on down, not only did many of them participate in some ways, but the effort to completely undermine accountability has been on 200% ever since. Attacking the January 6th committee, forming a committee to investigate the committee, going after anybody who tries to exercise accountability against Donald Trump, basically trying to interfere in Alvin Bragg's investigation in Manhattan for the falsifying of records, which is a whole separate deal. Donald Trump praising January 6 rioters, offering to pardon them, and then getting kudos from members of Congress for doing it, sharing 40,000 hours of January 6 footage with Tucker Carlson, specifically so that he can do disinformation and lie about January 6th. That came from not some fringe of the right wing freaking,
Speaker of the House.
Board. Yeah, it came from the Speaker of the House. Exactly. So back to being a Capitol Hill reporter, eyes on the ball. The game has changed. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy when you go there day after day after day. Your job is to get stories on Capitol Hill. If you're the woman or the man who has the attitude, I don't really want to hear any about all this. I want to know why the Speaker of the House is leveraging institutional power in service of a coup, or leveraging institutional power in service of an anti-democratic candidate who tried to overturn an election, which is precisely factually what's going on. If you want to be that person, you are cutting off probably lots of your sources. You probably have an editor who's like, this is important, but there's other stuff going on. You have staff who run those members of Congress who all of a sudden aren't returning your phone calls and your emails and your texts because they know how to work the refs and they know how to work the press. And access is important on Capitol Hill. Some people manage it better than others. Some people manage this institutionalization better than others. And I do want to say in defense of a lot of good people who do a good job there, easier for me to say on the outside, having done it and not doing it every day.
I don't think so. I don't think you have to say that because I don't think you did say it was easy. I think that you said it was hard, and I think that's why that's why I asked you the answer, because of your 20 years of experience, because I know it's not that simple. A lot of us demand that reporters ask the question we think they should ask, and you just explained with a lot of nuance why it's just not that easy if you want to be able to keep doing your job and have access to the building, much less the staff. So I think you did a great job explaining that.
But let me give you a very quick example, and I'll send you a link maybe for the show notes. I want people to watch this clip. Liz Landers, who's a Vice News Tonight correspondent who I work with, is very, very good at finding the pro-democracy balance here. She covers Capitol Hill. She's well-sourced. She's well-respected. I will send you a clip. I want people to click on it. She was talking to a congressman named Ralph Norman. He's a pro-MAGA congressman, very much so. Famous for texting the White House about martial law right around January 6th, and you can look it up there. A couple months ago, he's giving a press gaggle on Capitol Hill and criticizing the Biden administration about how democracy works, and he's just was giving a gaggle. Liz starts questioning him about his text. He starts talking about democracy, and she said something just very, very simple to him on this tape. She said, is martial law how democracy works, Congressman? And this guy just walked away because he didn't have an answer. I'm not cheering for the gotcha moment. I'm cheering for a journalist who actually made it real and asked the simple question as hard as a diamond to this guy. Somebody who advocated for martial law in the United States of America, which is the calling of the military into the streets to help keep the president in power. This is an elected member of Congress who advocated for it. And Liz simply confronted him with how he thinks democracy works. Very simple, very neat and clean, very economical, and very, very journalistic. Proud of her.
Okay, I have found the clip after I got done talking with Todd. I'm going to drop it in for you all to hear now.
A number of the members who, like yourself, who are opposed to Kevin McCarthy right now also had their names come up in the January 6th report. Is there a connection there between the people that are opposing him and also some of the folks who have been subpoenaed or have been named in that report?
That has nothing to do with who we select as speaker. That has nothing to do with who we select. We have one chance. Is this about power, though? This is one chance to elect a man who will solve the cancer in this country, which is overspending.
You were just saying this is how democracy works. I believe you had been texting about martial law. Is that how democracy works? I mean, truly, though.
Okay, that's Liz Landers at Vice News. Now back to my conversation with Vice News' Todd Zwillich.
Okay, so I want to ask you, based on the fact that you're doing this great coverage, again, go to Vice.com, Breaking the Vote, Todd Zwillich, a series tracking growing assault on voting rights and efforts to undermine the democratic process in America. It's so hard, even for me, who cares about this subject, to keep track of where we are at state to state and as a federal government, Congress, where we are at with the health of our democracy. I think it's probably fair to say after the midterm elections in 2020, right? Was it 18? 18, when Democrats took back the House, was the biggest thing we could do because it meant that the 2020 election wouldn't be determined by those Republicans after we saw what they did. That was huge to me, the midterm elections. Obviously, Biden being elected was huge. I think a lot of us then go to sleep. It's over. But if you follow closely, and like I said, I'm not following closely enough, state to state, we can see they're still trying to make it hard to vote. We can see that they're trying to put people in office that aren't going to count the votes, or we can see the legal challenges, even to the Supreme Court with this, what's it called, the one legislature thing. It would change everything. So where do you see it? How do you even frame it, where we're at, the health of our democracy?
Huge question, and you hit a lot of the points that I think are important. There are a lot of troubling, ominous signs. The biggest one is that the most factual thing I can say as a lifelong, career-long political journalist is that the Republican Party has fundamentally changed. It is no longer a pro-democracy party. It is fundamentally authoritarian right now. That could change. I hope it does. Right now, it's an authoritarian party that wants to stop competing in fair elections. They're not into it. And you can see that at almost every step of the process. They're not into
it.
Yeah, from the Supreme Court, you mentioned Moore v. Harper, which is the sovereign legislature theory, which is currently under review at the Supreme Court, all the way down to efforts in the state legislatures, not only to change voting rules and voting laws in Arizona, in Georgia, North Carolina, absolutely, certainly Florida, and a lot of other places too, Nevada, but also outside of just voting, to get rid of accountability. Georgia's governor just signed, the legislature just passed a new law that, Fani Willis, Fulton County prosecutor, she might prosecute Trump and other coup plotters. They have a new law in Georgia now that says if the Georgia legislature doesn't like what a county prosecutor is doing, they can undertake a process and just remove them. They have a whole new process now that makes prosecutors responsive to partisan legislatures, which just shows you that it's a shot against accountability, even though that's outside the voting realm. On the other hand, Pete, some good signs. I want to telegraph this, which is like, I am not, and I have never, ever advocated on a partisan basis. I'm not here to say.
I know. Listen, I know. I've tried to get you to.
Yeah, and that's not what this is. This is a clear-eyed assessment that one party is fundamentally authoritarian. The other party has tons of problems too, but they haven't really changed all that much from the one you knew back in civics class. They really haven't. Even though some of the policies may be different, the tactics and the strategies and the thought process largely the same. In the midterms of 2022, there were anti-democratic candidates running to take over elections, MAGA candidates in Arizona, in Georgia, in Michigan, a lot of other places too. Pennsylvania doesn't have a Secretary of State that does that function. It was the governor candidate, Mike Mastriano, Christian nationalist, basically running to purge the voter rolls and overturn elections in Pennsylvania.
Wasn't he at January 6th, Mastriano?
Yeah, he was there. He rented 3 buses to go.
Oh,
Yeah, he was questioned by the January 6th committee. He's never been implicated or charged in any rioting or anything like that, but he was present there. So was Mark Finchem, who was the candidate for Secretary of State in Arizona. I bring it up to say that almost all of them lost. Voters actually in the swing states, they all lost. There was a pro-MAGA Secretary of State, I think in Missouri, who won, or maybe Indiana. Not a swing state anyway, doesn't make it okay. They should have fair elections too. But we're down to counting beans. All the swing state ones that could overturn elections and threaten to announce their candidacies at a QAnon conference, literally, they all lost. That's encouraging because voters, young voters, and people who did pay attention to this went to the polls with democracy on their minds. And I'm not talking about Democrats. There are a core of habitual Republican voters who are now independents, I guess, who also didn't vote for this stuff because races that you would have expected a Republican to win, they just didn't. There were other issues as well. Abortion played a big role, no question. But democracy, a lot of candidates moved hard to put democracy at the top of the ballot. And instead of being boring and like civics and I don't know what that is, actually voters got it. A lot of voters got it, especially young voters. Things are bad, but also that was very encouraging. People do understand it. When they pay attention to it, they may not know these dumb details. They do know that something's at stake. They do know that they don't want their right to vote effed with. They don't want their say effed with. And they don't want people lying and overturning elections. People get that. I think a lot of people get that across the political spectrum in a lot of ways. So,
yes, that's a really good point. Election deniers. I haven't even heard that phrase in a few months. We should be using it consistently as a way to describe anybody who is speaking or doing anything if they are, in fact, an election denier. Last question for you is about the breaking news today about Congressman George Santos. He's being charged with 13 counts of I don't know what. It's just happened today. I haven't really gotten read in on it. But what do you think of this guy and what does this mean? Because I think to some extent, one of the issues has been for Republicans in the House and Speaker McCarthy is the razor thin margin. And so like in maybe another Congress, when they had more of a cushion, they would have booted him a long time ago. So I think that's at play. Maybe I'm wrong, but what do you make of how big of a deal is this? What's the precedent for a congressman currently serving to be charged this way?
Yeah, important to remember that George Santos remains a member in good standing in the Republican conference. He's got a vote. They're not kicking him out. In fairness, there was a time not long ago where being indicted on federal charges meant that you couldn't continue to serve. That largely has changed. I can name a Republican and a Democrat in the last couple of years who've served while being under federal indictment. Jeff Fortenberry from Nebraska caught 2 counts of campaign finance violations. He was convicted and he served while he was under indictment. And so did Bob Menendez, Democratic senator from New Jersey, beat the rap and was acquitted, but served, 2 years he was under indictment and he beat the rap and he wasn't kicked out of the Senate. So both sides of the aisle there. George Santos is a celebrity for being just a freaking bullshit artist and a con man.
Yep.
It's precisely what he is. That is no longer
disqualifying.
It's no longer a barrier to entry in the current Republican Party because the leader is a liar and a con man. And I think it's as simple as that. You put a finger on something very important, which is the vote count. Kevin McCarthy took 15 tries to become Speaker of the House, and he did it with as thin a margin as possible. He is largely not in control of this process. The right-wing Freedom Caucus MAGA members are in control of it. They not only held him up for 15 votes, but they only need one person to spark off a motion to vacate, which is a no confidence vote, which is kick him out as Speaker. So that tells you all you need to know. Aside from having a con man and a liar as the head of the party, that tells you all you need to know about why George Santos isn't in trouble, because they need his vote. I guess that's just real talk. They need his vote. If he's convicted or pleads guilty, he's going to have to go, I guess. But especially with the debt limit fight, and we should touch on that real quickly because these things get interconnected. I don't know how that ends, man. And I don't think anybody does. This one is dead serious and the consequences are calamitous. Republicans have chosen this hostage situation to try to get what they want out of a spending deal. They're threatening the health of the U.S. economy and a lot of people's jobs and mortgages and car notes and interest rates. to get what they want out of this. And I just want to, it's connected to George Santos because these guys are in talks now. Finally, McCarthy and McConnell, Schumer and Jeffries and Biden are four corners plus Biden. They're in the talks. They're going to get serious about it. Mitch McConnell said the other day, this will be settled when McCarthy and Biden reach an agreement. Actually, that's false. That's not when this will be settled. This will be settled when McCarthy and Biden reach an agreement, and then McCarthy can pass that agreement in this House of Representatives, in this Republican conference. There is no guarantee. I want you to tell me what is the deal that Kevin McCarthy can handshake with Joe Biden on. Joe Biden, head of the Biden crime family, Marxist, delirious with brain rotting disease or whatever he has. This is the core narrative of the Republican base now.
Yeah.
What deal can Kevin McCarthy make with him that they will pass with McCarthy's 5-vote margin?
Right.
Because that's what it's about. If he turns to Democrats to pass it, which is possible, hey, this is the best deal we can get. Here's 100 Republicans who will raise the debt limit and a bunch of other 118 Democrats. He's now the head of a bipartisan coalition. He's done. He's no longer speaker. They're not going to keep him speaker.
Right.
And they can, they can make Jim Jordan speaker in a day. I don't know how this ends, but it all goes back to George Santos, because where are the votes to pass this deal that McCarthy has to make with evil Joe Biden? I can't see it. A lot of people who are on Capitol Hill a lot more than me these days also can't see it. I think the street, which is what I call Wall Street, is starting to sort of see it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think my prediction, and as you know, I'm never wrong, is Joe Biden just says, I'm raising the debt limit. I can't do anything about it.
14th Amendment? Yeah. A lot of people want him to he said yesterday, I'm considering
I don't understand the political loss. What happens if he doesn't? What happens if he does that? What happens?
So I think
the Republicans will do it next time. Fine. With the debt ceiling, stupid. Let them do it. Like the double stand. Like
I think there's two. I think politically, there's not much wrong with it, but it's unpredictable. It's never been tried. It's never been done. It would definitely be litigated. And the problem with all of this and unpredictability when you're dealing with bond ratings and treasury prices and the markets is that even if Biden does this, Wall Street and the bond markets go, okay, debt limit is raised. It's not raised. So the bills are going to continue to get paid. Treasury has the authority. That's fine. But all of this, the only thing that matters, the bottom line of this entire conversation, is investor confidence, which is a very gushy, very amorphous thing. If Biden invokes the 14th Amendment that says that the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned, and he says, I have the authority, F you Republicans, I'm going around you, and I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. MSNBC cheers, Rachel Maddow cheers, Mehdi Hassan cheers because he likes
cheers.
It too. Pete,
The street cheers, investors cheer.
Maybe, Pete. They cheer on the first day, but then a lot of investors might start to say, okay, that was a cool trick, but I invest in treasuries and bonds for the long term and the long-term stability of United States debt. This is sending a signal to me that the United States political system isn't up to the task of consistently making sure the debts are covered. It may have worked for now. You may have won a news cycle, or you may have won an election cycle and gotten past it on a Monday. But bond ratings are based on the streets and the world market's long-term faith in U.S. debt. And that kind of really what would be a trick at this point, one neat trick, because it's never been done before and would go to court and would be litigated, even if the White House won that fight. If you're an investor, does that scream confidence to you? Does that scream like, ooh, these guys really have it together and this is a really smart place, AAA rated, to park my money for the long term?
Well,
I don't know if it does it.
I have a whole conversation with my friend Barry Ritholtz, who's a finance guy, on this. It's there's so much to talk about. It's such an important point that you're making. Really, all really good points. Todd, man, I can't believe we haven't talked. That's all my fault. This has been so great, and I don't want to stop it.
Pete.
I love talking to you, man.
I've loved you for a lot of years. I love you on the air. I love you as a guy. It's just a pleasure to see you. It's an honor to be invited, as always.
Well, the feeling is so
I used to fill in, folks. I used to fill in host for this guy back on Sirius XM when he was the afternoon drive guy, and he was taking a lot of time off because his time was in demand. They wanted him on CNN. Pete, we want more Pete. And the JV host was the fill-in guy who was willing to take no money to sit in the chair, and that's how we met.
They
and
didn't pay you?
No, I mean,
oh yeah,
yes, but no.
They paid you pennies. No, but I no, like you being in that chair brings, as did the guests I had access to, brought me credibility. So it only made me look good whenever you were there. So, because then when I would come back, they're like, oh, that guy's smart. And I'm like, hey, it doesn't seem as smart as he was yesterday. Oh, that wasn't me. That was Todd Zwillich. He really knows his shit, as always. Go check it out. Subscribe. Well, I'll say it all on the way out. Thank you, Todd.
Pete, anytime. I love you, man.
Love you too, buddy.
How about it, everybody? Todd Zwillich, he's back on the show, and he'll be back more often. And I would love for you to go thank him for joining us at Todd Zwillich. He'll see your tweets. Go follow him at Vice News, vice.com/breaking the vote. Go subscribe to their newsletter. They are doing great work. I learned about it prepping for my interview with them, and it's good stuff, so go check it out. All right, last night at our stand-up, happy hour, hangout, extravaganza that we do every Thursday at 8 for is it 3 years? Over 3 years? I don't know, since the pandemic, since lockdown started, March 2020. I'm not doing the math. Anyway, John Carroll, who writes all the music for the show, including the interstitial intro music there. I mean, I'm happy to have anybody else submitting it, and John certainly isn't having his feelings hurt, but he's always been so kind and generous. I hope you go to johncarroll.org, because you can listen to this song, you can buy this song, and I hope everybody does. If you haven't purchased John's music, please do, because if you listen to this podcast, you heard it over and over, and I think people should pay for that as well as the podcast. So go to johncarroll.org if you can, of course, if you can. This is an amazing song. Everybody was wildly impressed by it. John wrote this song. You can pay whatever you want for it at johncarroll.org. It's called Rich Man's Daughter, and he played it live for us last night, and stupid me had my mic on. You might hear a little bit of that. I think everybody else was better about it. But John Carroll taking us out with Rich Man's Daughter. johncarroll.org.
Oh, what's a favorite here?
Oh, I'll tell you what my favorite is.
In a while. I buy the Noga hide. She's used to leather. She might have thought that I was a go-getter, but nothing satisfies. Look at her roll her eyes. No matter what I provide, she's used to better. My Chevrolet ain't no mighty Maserati. My credit rating might be kinda spotty. No need to strain to see that she's ashamed of me when she's complaining to me and everybody. I'm just a poor man, married to a rich man's daughter. I can't keep her happy like I oughta. She's had it all for free. Looks like it's gonna be another long night. Each hand struggles just to pay the other, while she's running off to call her mother. Tell daddy pretty please, lift him up off his knees and make it all right, right. What she's about to need means my frustration. We've got 4 mouths to feed. She wants another vacation. She's only known first class, served in a rosy glass. She's going to smash, that's no exaggeration. It strikes me dumb, this game and how they play it. Where I come from, folks come right out and say it. All this whispered innuendo gonna get you in the end. So don't tell me what I'm gonna owe, just let me pay it. I'm just a poor man, married to a rich man's daughter. I can't keep her happy like I oughta. She's had it all for free. Looks like it's gonna be another long night. Each hand struggles just to pay the other. She's running off to call her mother. Tell Daddy pretty please, lift him up off his knees and make it all right. I'm just a poor man, Lord have mercy. Ain't nothing I can do to make that girl smile. Well, I tell you, I'd buy a Chevy on my credit. Ain't enough for you, honey. I'd be beholden to your mama. I'd be beholden to your daddy until the day I die. Lord have mercy on this poor man. Oh, Daddy, make it all right. By the Naugahyde she's used to leather, she might have thought that I was a go-getter, but nothing satisfies. Look at her roll her eyes. No matter what I provide, she's used to better. Rich man's daughter.
That's your
Holy
song.
shit. That's fucking great.
Yes.
Is that one of yours, John?
Yeah, it is.
Go buy it. Go buy it right now. JohnCarroll.org.
All right, that's it. Go buy that song, as I said, and have a great weekend, everybody. Look for my conversation with Christian and Ophira dropping tomorrow again. At least that's the schedule. Today's quote, Amanda Gorman. There is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.